Minnesota. As the University of Minnesota's youngest campus, UMR had the opportunity to grow with intention and forethought. Instead of many departments, we have one, allowing faculty from chemistry to work with philosophers, allowing psychologists to work with historians. What's more, all UMR faculty focus their research on student learning and student success. Not surprisingly, given our location in Rochester, our students come to us from across the state and with a breadth of backgrounds, bringing with them a variety of experiences, but all of them united by their desire to help those who are suffering and in need of medical care. Every faculty member, every staff member, every administrator is dedicated to meeting our students where they are and helping them achieve their goals. Helping us do this are dozens of partners, including Mayo Clinic, DMC, and the City of Rochester, as well as partnerships from across the University of Minnesota system and legislatures like Senator Klobuchar. Since her election to the U.S. Senate, Amy Klobuchar has earned a reputation as an effective, results-driven legislator willing to reach across the aisle to get things done. A consistent leader for expanding access to higher education, Senator Klobuchar has worked tirelessly to ensure students have the skills they need to succeed in the 21st century economy. Senator Klobuchar has been a champion for UMR, and we are so pleased to have her here visiting us today. Please join me in welcoming Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thanks everyone, and thank you, Vice Chancellor, for that nice introduction. And it was just great to talk to some of the teachers and, of course, the students. And happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. We hope we get the luck of the Irish with our NIH grants here. I also want to thank the Rochester and the students, Mayo University, for all they're doing, because we all know we have a shortage of doctors, nurses, and medical professionals in our country and in our state. One of the main goals of our education system right now should be to get more students into science and medicine. And one of the ways you do this is by being smart about how to get them into the programs and make it work for them. And one of the coolest things about Rochester, probably in my mind, there's only a few other places that are like this. You not only have the world-renowned Mayo Clinic, you also have the university, and you have this great ecosystem where research is being done, cutting-edge research on personalized medicine and AI and the use of technology. And then you have all these students here who are eager to get careers in this field, but also to help do the research. Because you can't learn everything about medicine in a classroom. You also have to be in a lab looking at things and figuring out how to save the world. And that's what I love about what goes on here. And of course, the National Institute of Health and the state of Minnesota and the federal government have found a way, in addition to private and nonprofit grants, to fund this research. It's what gives our country the edge. It is what makes our country the leader when it comes to global medical research. The leader. There is no country close to ours when it comes to and we're making sure that we are on the cutting edge of cures and medical devices, and we want to keep that edge. That is an edge worth keeping. Even if you looked at it only from an economic perspective, it's a huge economic generator for the United States of America. But of course, we also look at it from a quality of life perspective and the way the research that's developed here. We were just talking about orthopedics and using AI to look at the spine and to develop being able to read, what is it, which kind of scans? CT scans, don't want to say the wrong one. Reading CT scans to help our medical professionals better use this. I am a product of this myself. When I found out, not only did I have my hip replacements there, which is a whole other story, but I also found out I had breast cancer, and I was able to get treated here at Mayo because it was caught early. Why was it caught early? Technology, research. They catch it early, Then they say, okay, all you need to have is a lumpectomy, which is very similar to a lot of people who do not have high levels of cancer but have lower levels. They can have a lumpectomy and then a short course of radiation. Short course, used to be long course. Short course, no chemo, and you're able to keep working, and you're able to get on a plane and go back to Washington, D.C. and vote the same day you have the lumpectomy. I actually do not suggest that this is a good idea. But the point is, none of that would have happened without cutting-edge medical research. So, cutting-edge research is why UMR in Minnesota have a global reputation as a healthcare leader. And I always believe that we can make government work more efficiently and more effectively. So it is always good to step back and say, what's working, what's not working, where should we make cuts, where shouldn't we make cuts? But this slash and burn idea where we just go across the board cannot be the right result. And I love a competitive environment. I love a competitive environment because I believe when you look at things competitively, Minnesota wins. Rochester wins, Mayo wins, University of Minnesota wins because we're doing really smart research and we're doing it well. So one of the reasons, for instance, that I voted against the bill that we had and wanted a shorter term legislation to be able to negotiate budget was because that bill actually contained cuts to NIH over $1 billion just over 6 months to these grants. Now we don't know which grants will be cut. We don't know that it'll be across the board. We hope that it will be looking at this in a really smart way and that we will be fine coming out of this. But this idea that we just kind of randomly and across the board make the cuts as opposed to looking at what's working and what's not working and what's actually training our students is what I think we need to be smarter about doing. NIH research does far more than support scientists in laboratories. It leads to medical discoveries, treatments for diseases, and is the engine that powers local economies like here. For more than a century, the National Institutes for Health has been a driving force behind groundbreaking discoveries like blood tests to detect HIV and hepatitis, the use of lithium to manage bipolar disorder, and the HPV vaccine that prevents cervical and many other types of cancer. The University of Minnesota system has more than 700 projects, including studies to improve organ transplants, treat cancer without chemo, and therapies for Parkinson's that are funded by NIH. Taking away federal funding for medical research stalls healthcare innovation, economic growth, and extinguishes hope for so many that are relying on these trials as we speak. I was at the University of Minnesota in the Twin Cities just a few weeks ago and met 2 young women, one a mom, who were saved because of clinical trials. One was still in a clinical trial. One was in remission because of a clinical trial. So there is the immediate effect of people who are actually relying on these trials. They themselves are experiments to save the lives of people they will never even meet, but it's actually saving their lives as we speak. And there's no time in history, I would say, where we're not seeing this rapid development more than right now. And part of that's because of the research that went into personalized medicine and went into AI and all of these kinds of things. So we're reaching this crescendo where we actually can find a cure for cancer and already are finding treatments that are working. We're at a moment in time where we're going to start curing these rare diseases and changing people's lives. This is the very last time we should be going backwards. I think about the one constituent who takes drugs to manage her stage 4 breast cancer. Those drugs were the result of NIH-led trials. Another told me one of her kids is living with rare cancer, and the NIH funding freeze threatens the prognosis. Simply put, she said, slashing the funding will lead to deaths. Everyone knows someone in their life who has benefited from medical research. And I mentioned my own story, but they're all over our state and this town. When I mentioned how important this is for the economy We also have the scientific evidence to prove that. The research shows that every dollar in NIH funding spurs over $2.50 in economic activity. And in Minnesota alone, NIH funding generates over $1.7 billion of annual economic activity and supports nearly 3,400 jobs and businesses, 3,400 businesses and 8,000 jobs. Jeopardizing this puts these jobs and businesses at risk. It hurts our economy and sets back American innovation. And as I noted, it puts us at a competitive disadvantage versus the rest of the world. We have been leading. We have been showing how a capitalism and an economic system that rewards results works in America. That's why we have beaten out China and other countries when it comes to these life-saving cures. This doesn't mean we don't partner with medical research facilities in other countries. We thrive on that. We give them ideas, they give us ideas, they have people study here. That's all good, but my point is we've been the leader on this and we don't want to backtrack and allow others to be the leader instead. I'm going to keep pushing in favor of science, in favor of research, in favor of Rochester's future, rural Minnesota's future, and our state's future. Every dollar we put into research today paves the way for cutting-edge treatments and American leadership. Thank you. And I will note all the NIH support for years has been about as bipartisan as it can get. We've increased NIH funding every year for 10 years. You're seeing the results. We were smart, we put resources in there and it's worked. And everything we did was with bipartisan support. Democrats and Republicans, including with the Republican-run House, we were able to work out the budget. So right now the fights are about the money that had already been allocated. That's what's going on in court, and we're winning those cases, but we also have the battle ahead, which will be the actual budget as opposed to the short-term budget. Questions? Anything?
I actually have more of a question for the Vice Chancellor.
Okay.
So the University of Minnesota is the largest NIH grant recipient in the state of Minnesota. I'm curious how much. Thank you. I'm curious how much of that funding comes, to the U of R. How much that affects U of R.
I mean, UMR itself, because we focus our research on the scholarship of teaching and learning. So we focus on how students learn and how to make their learning last. Less of our funding comes from that, but 80% of our students have some substantive interaction with Mayo Clinic, either as an internship, a shadowing, an observation, a mentoring, or actual research. And of course, Mayo Clinic has a great deal of an interaction with NIH.
I have some numbers too.
Oh, please.
Because since I'm doing the funding, I thought I would.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are 1,500 active NIH projects in Minnesota receiving over $900 million in federal NIH grants. I mentioned the jobs and how many involved. The University of Minnesota system, as you note, is by far the largest recipient of NIH funding, $380 million for over 700 projects in the fiscal year 2024. Mayo Clinic is second largest in the state at $278 million for 439 projects. Additionally, Rochester businesses like Conway Medical, Piraeus Medical, Sursense Inc., Pavash Vascular Corporation, and Emion Inc. have all received NIH grants in the last several years. One example, Mayo Clinic programs that rely on NIH funding include the Mayo Clinic Study of Aging, which for 20 years has followed thousands of participants through their golden years to better understand Alzheimer's. As you know, Dr. Peterson was once the head of Alzheimer's, the advisor to the president when President Obama was president, from Mayo. So Mayo's always been on the cutting edge, as has been the U of M, on Alzheimer's research, which is one of the most expensive and prevalent and growing diseases in our nation. Imagine if we just took a walk on Alzheimer's and decided, oh, we're just going to let that go, despite the fact that we have all this technology and new learning and everything we've heard. We're just going to let them, more and more doubling the number of people with Alzheimer's is what we're seeing. This makes no sense at all. We save money by doing the research and obviously save people's life. Across the U of M system, more than 700 projects are facing cuts, and this, of course, includes the research on Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and cancer. So the status is, to be clear, that Minnesota Attorney General and 21 other Attorney Generals across the country, medical centers, universities, have a federal judge. They've taken it to court. Why did they do this? They can't just do it, oh, we don't like these cuts. No. They actually have a basis in the law because of the fact that Congress allocated on a bipartisan basis this funding. It was in law, and that's Article 1 of the Constitution. They bring it to court. A federal judge has blocked many of the cuts. And so now we're dealing with that's going on at the same time, and that while we're having some NIH firings that will administer the grants, so that's the other problem. Then the third thing was this budget that just came out, which is only short-term, 6 months, but that involves $1 billion over the whole system. So we do not know how that's going to affect us here. I hope that it's based on some thinking which doesn't involve cutting out these great programs that have had such great results in Minnesota. So that's where we are, and that's why I voted against that bill. Okay? All right?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks everybody. Thank you. Okay.
I like these questions that you answer for me.
Yeah, anytime. Well, you really have to be concrete about the numbers, I think,
Yeah.
because it's just, otherwise it's just gobbledygook.
Yeah.